After we've designed a homepage and actually created a whole style guide with all of the font sizes, spacings, margins, and everything like that inside of Figma, now it's time to build all the components for the website. Because the most important thing in like this approach where we're using Figma to Webflow plugin is to be building the website with components so that we can just migrate all of the components to Webflow, and then with those components we can go ahead and create all of the other pages inside of the Webflow dashboard. So let's jump straight into it. You can see here, like on my screen here, that basically this is the page, the homepage we've designed previously. And then we have components. So I've just went ahead and deleted these two because these are the same components like from the top, and all of the other ones are new components. And I'm going to be taking the pen tool, like the bright red pen tool, and just gonna basically circle like everything that is going to be a new component so that we can figure out, okay, which are going to be our components, and probably I can also list them below there so that we can always reuse those. So as by going to the website, like we can always hide and show items. So a component doesn't have to have everything. Like it can have, like this one can have a button, this one doesn't have to have a button. But in our case, this is gonna be a video component, and this is just gonna be a like a featured hero image itself. So like we're gonna be like basically with all of my strengths circling that one. Then the next one is gonna be like two texts, so like we can circle that one. Then we have this one, which is actually, like you can see here, this component is actually this. So we don't need to design this one. Like we can reuse this like basically pretty easily. So let's go ahead and like skip that. So we're gonna cross this one out. This one is basically this. So we're gonna cross this. We're gonna cross this again. This one is gonna be contemporary artists, which is gonna be probably a reusable, like from here, like we can basically reuse a lot of the elements from, no, actually from this one, we can reuse a lot of elements from here, but it has a different width, so we can count it as new component. Then there is the stats one, like we didn't have a stats component, like even though it's pretty similar to the component, oh no, actually like this was a smaller image, so yeah, this was a completely new component. And then here we have commission artworks. So we're just gonna take the first part because we're gonna be able to Command C, Command V in Webflow and create new variations of these ones. And actually, yeah, that's it. Yeah, I know like here below, like they have a call to action in the footer. So like that's it. Cool. Let's go ahead and go to the next one. This is gonna be the form. So in that case, I think this is better to build in Webflow, just because currently the Figma to Webflow plugin doesn't support radio buttons, form input fields, and stuff like that. So we might get into more trouble and more headaches by trying to recreate this as a component, instead of just going ahead directly in Webflow and building it, like just adding the navigation and the footer and that's it. So we're not gonna be doing anything here. And for the purpose of this tutorial, we've pulled some of the most unique pages from the website. The website basically has a lot of these kind of duplicated many more times, like in order to achieve the end result. But we're just going to be taking few of those, like 50%, that have unique layouts so that we can take a look at that. And we're going to be basically building the whole website like that. We're going to be removing the links later on, like in Webflow, that we don't need, that are linking to some other pages. But in general, the overall idea is to try to finish a website, actually, not to create just a mock-up, but to go ahead through the whole process and actually to see how you can actually connect the website and go live. Okay, we're on later stories. So then we have here, like we can see, like even going out here, we need to go to latest stories just to figure out the functionality. Stories. So this goes to the same page, but it just reloads the content below. So we know that we're going to be designing basically this card, which can be reused. We're going to be designing this card, which can be reused. And we're also going to be designing this, so we can take the CSS. We'll see to which percentage we're going to be able to reuse this. But yeah, it's going to be important that we can reuse these elements. Everything else is just going to be the same. We're going to need this load more button. And like already we have this, so like we don't need this. Like this. Again, we're going to the post page where we're going to be reusing the whole hero. Here we had double text field, but this one is white. So I'm going to count this as a new one. This is a video player. This is a quote. This is gonna be a slider, actually similar to this one, it seems, but this one is white, so I'm gonna consider that as a new component. We already have this. This is a featured artist part, so this is a new component again. Here for the hero, we've already had an image hero, so it's gonna be this one. We're gonna be basically adding a paragraph and a call to action also, and then we can remove and add those items like basically per page. So that's why we're gonna be removing this. This one, again, just checking here, text on the left, image on the right. This is one, we already have this. All good. And this is why I'm saying, okay, in the part where we were discussing about how to set up components actually in Figma, this is where it's important for you to set the component in the proper way to know, okay, am I gonna be pointing it to the top left, or I'm gonna be pointing it in the middle, or maybe on the bottom, like when we start adding more texts to the components. This component we already have, this component we already have, this we already have, so we're all good there. So you can see how easy it is to build a lot of pages in Webflow and to like build it quickly, and like also to build a pretty nice design and pretty posh design when you're considering the component driven approach, instead of thinking every single page to be completely unique. Here we already have this, we already have this. This is gonna be maintenance services, so this section we are gonna need to have. This slider, I think, let me check out here. It's probably something like here. Yes, but we're just gonna need to add, I'm just gonna add a question mark. Because the only thing we're gonna add is a heading, and then we're gonna be adding and removing the heading, and also the description field here, and we're gonna be adding and removing the description field. Then this is what we already have, so we can reuse this. So this is one from the top, so we don't need this. We don't need this. This we already have. This we already have. This we already have from the top. This is a nice section, so this is a new component. We already have this. We already have this. We already have this. So yeah, a new page, and we only have 2 or 3 new components, something like that. Then the FAQ. This is gonna be a new component. This is gonna be a simple hero component we're gonna be taking out. Here, this is gonna be a simple hero, and then we're gonna be creating this as a component. Here, I guess we can, like, because this hero is pretty complex, so that's not a component driven part, but we can take this hero as a component that we're gonna be taking for every single one of the watches. So this is gonna be one of the collection heroes that we're gonna take. We're gonna need to create filters as a component. We're gonna need to create this as a micro component, and one of these cards is gonna be needed also. So we're all good there. We don't need this. And here we're gonna have a search. The filters, actually, we already have those. So yeah, all good there. Something like this we already have, but we're just gonna actually, let me see. It's the same card, so we do not need anything else. Look at all those nice watches. So AP, like if you're watching this, I have a Hamilton on my wrist, so you can reach us out to send us a small appreciation gift for this course. Okay, all good there. This is a watch post page. So here we're gonna be having a lot of new components because it's a pretty custom page. So this is a hero. This one we already have. This one, I think these are gonna be these are gonna be new components for sure. Just to make sure, yeah, these are going off screen, so that's why. So we have this and have this, and then actually these two. This one we don't need. This one we don't need. This one is gonna be the same one we used before, just without some items. Specifications. This is gonna be a new one, and this is gonna be a new one, and this is gonna be a new one. Nice. Okay, so the watch one has a lot of components. And then here again, terms page. We can have this, like we can create this pretty easily, but just because like we're gonna be adding a rich text, etc., etc., Like, let's create it and we'll see how it works. And this one is not. So by doing so, like, we realize, okay, a website with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, like 12, around 12 pages. And we're gonna count new components: 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, maybe 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30, 31, 32, 33, 34, let's say 35 new components. We're gonna need to have, like, the overall website is gonna have around 40 components, which we're gonna be reusing, and then we're gonna be able to build like as many pages as we want to. The QA process is gonna be a lot easier, and like we're gonna leave a lot less room for like mistakes. I mean, like, when you're building a bigger website, like, it might be that every single page has at least one new component that you can maybe develop directly in Webflow, or that when you're building the website, like, you just know, okay, this is gonna be a new one, let's clean it up for Webflow, and let's point out that I need to migrate this Webflow. But overall, like, even if not everything are component, not everything on your website is components, maybe sometimes you're gonna need to build something custom because it's just gonna be easier. It's gonna save you a lot of time. So, like, the boring work of actually setting up everything in Webflow is gonna be removed, and then, like, afterwards, in one of the next chapters where we go into Webflow, we're just gonna be doing all the fun things in Webflow. But yeah, in order for you to not kind of watch me 1 hour go ahead and like basically create all of these components, we're gonna be turning on the time lapse, and I'm gonna be going ahead and creating all of these components in Figma, record myself how I'm doing that, and then basically just going over some of the things I've noticed while I'm creating those. After about 3.5 hours, and like with some good music playing on my different screen, I was able to transfer everything into components. So basically we ended up having around 40 components as we discussed, and this is gonna allow us to go ahead and transfer everything to Webflow in a seamless way. And then also additionally, it's gonna allow us to build as many pages as we want to, because we have all of the core design systems that we need to basically use in order to build our website. So let's jump here. I've added, I mean, like, first let's kind of quickly look how long is our component list. But then, like, we have first new textiles. So while we were building, like, I saw that in some cases we needed some new font sizes. I mean, like, that some of our font sizes were not great, like when we were setting up the initial style guide. But the great thing here is that we're able to go ahead and choose like heading M, which was 36, and then reduce it to 32 for both variations, both for times and for the other font. And this way, we are able to basically adjust our website on the go and make sure that everything is seamless and that everything is smooth. Like if you went out and designed a whole website, it would be a lot harder for you to understand which font sizes you're using. So that's why it's great to follow the process: homepage, style guide, then designing, and then also making sure that we make the updates to our global style guide kind of here whenever we need to make something like that. We also, we also added some of the new text variations. So like you can see, some of the text variations that we added were for like text and bold. I think we changed some of the label kind of sizings. Headings stay the same, but yeah, like you can also start adding new font variations while you're designing. Just make sure that you add that globally and then it all makes sense kind of in the overall picture. Then one more fun thing that we used only here, it's the fixed positioning. So by going to Figma and then on the top right, you can have an absolute position. So whenever I drag this item, like I can drag it anywhere I want to. I can drag it here, here, here. It's the most fun way to use the absolute position because sometimes it can be a pain. Whenever I find it, or I can also use the centering elements also, I can center everything, and Figma to Webflow plugin is also going to be supporting our fixed position when we do the migration from here to Webflow. Let me remember a few more. Yeah, there were a lot of similar components. So like the next step is going to be to structure everything in HTML elements. But after that, we're going to be cleaning everything up and just figuring out which components are pretty similar, because you can see here that we have a component that is like this, which is similar to the features component, but it's not really like exactly the same. And then like, should we treat this as the same class every single time, or should we treat it differently? That's one of the things we can figure out like in the dev handoff, and figure out how to clean everything up, like even more, that we have like a really seamless class naming system when we transition to Webflow. And then the final thing, we also introduced a narrow container. Just because for me it was a lot easier to introduce one more container that's going to be narrow, which is going to add like a lot more versatility to the website and allow us to build it like even easier. So yeah, with that, like kind of we can quickly go ahead and take a look at everything and like all of the components, component by component, and see kind of what we were able to create. So like I can open up the side panel here. Yes. So we have the hero. So like that was a hero we already created. We added here like a smaller hero, like just for post pages. But I always like to add every single component. So you can see here that they added a call to action, paragraph, and the hero. Sometimes you might not need a call to action, but in Webflow, it's going to be pretty easy for us just to hide that on specific pages. So it's always great to think, okay, which are all the possible ways I'm going to be using this component, and how can I add all the content there just to make sure that everything works. FAQ component. And that's also pretty fun, like, because for me, it's even a lot easier to create an FAQ component when you're thinking in auto layout every single time. So you have FAQ item toggle. You use the distribute item to space between everything, like you FAQ answer wrap, paragraph, button, etc., etc. Then you have the section post hero, like which we were able to kind of leverage. I had to add because we don't have margins here, so for me it was a lot easier to add like a margin 32, and then later on in Webflow we're just gonna be adding an additional class here that's gonna be our local class to like push everything down to like a little bit more. But yeah, here we just added a filler item here, so we can position everything in Figma as expected. Split text, this we already went through, pretty straightforward. Here you can see that like in the original website we just needed, I think, here to add 2022. But I added again like the paragraph and explore and the another text below, which are going to be pretty easy to change, that we can basically reuse afterwards in some other areas. This is a pretty interesting section. We added items for watches, stories, and you can see that you don't have to design the whole list. You can just design things that are pretty important for you, that are basically going to be scaling in Webflow. So like we just added 3 watches, and like they're the same because that's going to be the same way it migrates to Webflow. So you don't have to go ahead and like create a whole list and like have all of the content already yet. But later on, like it would be ideal to have all of the content. Stories, like you can see that we were able to create like this. Okay, we can get a little bit darker. Yeah, that we were able to create like a fully functioning tabs. Like in Webflow, we're going to be adding all of the tabs, making the functionality work actually in the end so that it doesn't gonna break. But the great thing is like the base HTML we can set here. And then later on, we're going to be working on the features. Featured card, like we set up that one. We set up normal cards and load more stories. And then like we're gonna decide in Webflow the logic of how everything is gonna actually behave. AP, like this is another hero, but this is with an image, because the first one is gonna be with a video. This is an image one. This is the hero for the collections. No, this is the hero for the post page. This is for the collections. This is the collection card. This is text like we had above, like just in black. These are the specs. Again, these tabs are gonna be made in Webflow. So like we're setting the base here, and then like in Webflow we're gonna be transitioning everything else. Of course, like if you're not the one developing the website in the end, like you can add dev notes on the side to know, okay, when it clicks it's gonna be like this, when it clicks it's gonna be like this. But in our case we're just gonna proceed kind of without the dev notes currently. But yeah, ideally you should have that. We already created this one. This was the kind of variation that was pretty similar to the features, but it just had a bigger image because it's for the post page. They wanted to feature more of the images. These were items here. This is basically a component that had only 2022, but I added the top and like paragraph and the call to action, so I have again more versatility in the section, like in the section itself. Then like collections, we already created that. Find a boutique. This is the one that has the map like added to it. So grid horizontal center, actually, because this one was centered. So like we created a grid horizontal center. That's another grid we created which was centered. So just to know, okay, this is the one that's gonna behave like this. And yeah, these are basically from all of these pages. Like I don't know how many there are currently. Like we created all of these components. There are some pages, as we said, like something like this, which is gonna be easier for us to create in Webflow directly instead of going ahead and creating it first in Figma and then migrating it to Webflow. So like this was basically everything for the component migration, and it's a pretty fun thing. I mean, like based on the website you're creating, you can start thinking of a website more in the components, just because like I guess like on our side we're building more business-oriented websites that need a lot of components, like enterprise websites again that are built out of component systems, which are getting pretty big. Like they can get 50 plus 100 plus pages, like just static like custom variations. So just because of that, it's always great that you start building a component library system. Even if you're designing everything custom, build a component library system and like transfer all the components to Webflow. And then like if you might have some small additional things that you need to basically change, like that's not gonna be a problem to develop something custom in Webflow. But yeah, the component approach is the best way I think to use Figma to Webflow plugin. So in the next tutorial we're gonna be adding the HTML tags. So until then, bye bye.